Don't lose your hat.
There's
You're
none.
in the rain.
Hey, you're here on time. We haven't started yet.
Thanks,
You're all right.
Okay. I'm dressed up for
You're
you.
fine. That's all right.
Fine day.
Hey, you think a guy comes in this lady bring a pizza at least?
Right.
You got pizza?
She's supposed to bring.
You got your hands full with everything? At least that's-
He just thinks of himself.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this Thursday, August 3rd, 2023, Committee of the Whole Administration meeting to order.
Here's the agenda.
First thing we will do is take roll call. Rod Riley is here. Ann Curry is going to be absent. Brian Schneider.
Here.
Dave Wiltsey.
Here.
Ray Larson.
Here.
Brent Mueller.
Here.
Tom Wahlberg.
Here.
Elisa Patterson.
Here.
Dana Logston.
Here.
Sherry Branson will be absent. Carl Johnson.
Here.
Marion Thornberry.
Here.
Have a quorum.
Yeah. I got it.
Okay. Before I ask for a motion to approve the agenda, I would just like to note that under section 9.4, I'm going to strike 9.4, the approval of the delinquent tax sale trustee agency agreement with Region 1 Planning Council from tonight's agenda. We're working very hard on this, working with Kurt's office as well as the state's attorneys, all working on this very hard. I know R1 wouldn't steer us wrong in this thing, so apparently there's still some issues that do need to be worked out. We're looking for a smooth transition in this though, so I am going to strike it from tonight's meeting. So with that being said, with that strike, is there any other, do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Motion by Mr. Schneider, second. Second by Mr. Thornberry. Any discussion? Yes, Mr.
On
Wilson.
the striking of 9/4, I just don't think it can be ready in 2 weeks. I think it should be next month.
Okay. Any other comments? Yes, Mr. Johnson.
I would concur with Mr. Wiltse. I think we need to make sure we take time and get it right. So when we get that proposal, it's something that's a fairly finished product that we can review and approve or disapprove.
Yep, I agree. I agree. And people have been working very hard on it. I know Becky's been working on it very hard. I've been in lots of talks with R1, so it is definitely headed in the right direction. So with that being said, then any other comments on the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Agenda's been approved. Public comment. I think I have one public comment for this evening so far. If anybody else would like to comment, please fill out a slip and bring it up. Corey Jarvik. Corey, if you would approach the podium, state your full name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes, sir.
My name is Corey Javerick. I live at 10764 Shaw Road, District 2, Boone County. I want to talk about the special use permit that's at my neighbor's house next door to me. After speaking to Boone County board members as well as staff, it doesn't look like the special use permit has ever been used in an R1 for a bed and breakfast. I think it was put in place at least 20 years ago or more. And at that time, Airbnb wasn't even around. You didn't host whole families in your house. So I think the intended use that they have listed on their application doesn't apply in this case. The second thing I want to talk about is the text amendments. I've submitted over 13 pieces of evidence to the ZBA against the text amendments for short-term use, short-term rentals. There will be an outline that Ms. Roberts will upload tomorrow. She uploaded everything else for me, so I appreciate that. And it talks about different things in there about the 2029 plan, how it goes against those things in there, as well as other published articles. There is a resource page there that you can click on links in there and take you right to the resources. She uploaded that for me as well. I also wanted to read a petition that we had circulated through several neighborhoods. We have over 150 signatures from all 3 districts. And it states, I am in opposition of allowing short-term rentals of less than 30 days, including but not limited to bed and breakfast, Airbnb, or VRBO type establishments to unincorporated Boone County, Illinois. I do not want short-term rentals added to the table of permitted uses via special use permit in section 3.16.1 of Boone County Code of the Boone County Code for R1, A1, or A2 zoning districts. Everybody I spoke to, and I spoke to over half of the people on here personally, and they do not want any version of it in the code. They were excellent to speak to. They got some really good feedback from the public as far as that goes. If you want an example of not putting it in, of putting something in the code but not allowing it in the county, I submitted into evidence the webpage from Lake County, which is 2 counties over from us. They do not allow it in Lake County, unincorporated Lake County at all. And they have, I think, a fine or something like that if you're caught doing it. So there is an example out there, and it does work. There's a meeting, they had a meeting on May, it was either March or May 2nd of 2022 that discussed that issue. They said that they felt it would take way too many resources to just implement it on top of all the other things that they had going on. And their residents didn't want it. So they were very passionate about that. And that's what I have to say. So thank you very much for your service, everybody. And thank you for listening to me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Woods?
Could I just ask the gentleman how many,
Normally don't.
I just want to know how many signatures on the petition? You mentioned the petition.
Why don't you maybe have that conversation after the meeting? All right, thank you. I don't want to get into a back and forth on public comment. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? All right, seeing none, Mr. Larson, would you like to take over the administration meeting, sir?
Thank you. We have 6.1, the Boone County Sheriff Public Safety Presentation, Sheriff Young.
Good evening.
Evening.
Sure. All right. I'll keep it short like I always do. During quarterly presentations, I'll keep it short. I'll start off with the bad news. That's our overtime, where we're at. With our patrol division, we budget $230,000. We have spent $204,000. We still have 4 months to go, obviously, in this fiscal year. That's 88% of what we budgeted. In corrections, we budgeted $180,000. We have spent $199,000. So we're currently $19,000 in the red for corrections. And in dispatch, we budget $96,000. We have spent $101,000, or a little over $101,000. So we're in the red approximately $5,800. So it shows you right there, obviously, with 4 months to go, where we're at with our overtime rate at all levels. So with what we have approaching in the month of August, and with the contract, when that gets signed, these overtime rates will also be a lot more than what they actually are today. So my September numbers will be obviously very difficult to read off. For staffing levels, on Friday, August 18th, we're going to swear in Thomas Wagner as a new deputy. This will put patrol at the staffing limit. This is, as we know in law enforcement in today's day, this is amazing that the Boone County Sheriff's Department will be at full staff on the patrol level. That's a credit to many, many individuals on our department that have maintained good police men and women to stay with Boone County. It's also a credit to you individuals for what you give us during the contract as far as training, our budget, obviously with the contract that we'll be signing soon. It gives us a lot of credit to you and a lot of credit to them. This actually be an individual, he's a Belvedere North graduate. This will actually be what we think is our first individual from Belvedere North. Obviously, if you ever went to one of Sheriff Ernest's swearing-ins, he swore by the purple and gold. Not a true politician. We love them all. So super happy that we have a Belvedere North graduate. So look forward to good things with this individual. Good young kid. In corrections, we are currently 7 down. And we'll be 8 down here in the next week or so. We have one of our correctional officers that'll be leaving to take a position up in the state of Wisconsin in the parole division. So that'll leave us 8 down in corrections. And in dispatch, we're 2 short. We were 1 short just a few weeks ago, Christina Stark, she was a very, very good dispatcher. She served us for 7 years. She left Boone County to take another opportunity. So we're currently 2 short, but we're in the process of hiring 2. Hopefully, when I come back in September, we'll have both those positions filled. Obviously, when we look at overtime numbers, yeah, with patrol, we are with next Friday, we'll be at full staff, but we still have the one that's on medical. We just got Deputy Reese back off of medical. He was on medical approximately last August, so he was off approximately 11 months. We still have 2 in the FTO program. Both are scheduled to be released approximately right around September 1st. And then next Thursday, a week from tonight, we have 2 graduate from the academy. So they'll begin their FTO program. So that kind of shows you that, yeah, we're full staff with numbers, but we're still approximately, 6 or 7 down from full staff departments. So also the scanner for the corrections, I can't thank you enough for approving that. That's scheduled to be in place next Monday. They'll tear it down out of Winnebago County and install it in our corrections. That's just a huge asset to our correctional officers and our correctional facility, just based on the lack of correctional officers we have, and definitely the lack of female correctional officers we have. So that'll be a great asset for our corrections division. Calls for services are still up for the month of July. We were up approximately 200 calls just for the month. I think each month I come here, it ranges between 100 and 200 calls that we're up for the calls of service. So you multiply that by 12, it tells you how busy our deputies are, how short-staffed they are, but how busy they are. Also, on the 18th, we'll also be swearing in a new sergeant. Sergeant Adam Stark will be sworn in as a sergeant. That'll be 9 a.m. if anybody's able to attend, that'd be great. It's going to be 9 a.m. up at the PSB for our swearing in for our new deputy and our new sergeant. So the McKinley building, we finally have begun the process of that. Obviously, we have 4 maintenance individuals, and the department heads know that we struggle with the 4 that we have at times to maintain all the that we have. And now we have taken on the project of McKinley. It's a huge addition. It's a lot of work. So they are kind of juggling between what their assignments are each day, plus also attending or going out there trying to get a few things done. Hopefully, like I said, by October 1st, we'll be able to start moving some vehicles out there is our goal, to get some stuff moved out there and get other things taken care of. But credit to them, they're doing an excellent job at maintaining both of what their assignments are. I talked to Kaler. I know some board members are new, but last fall it was approved to replace the stairs from our lower parking lot at the courthouse up to the courthouse, or up to the upper parking lot. He was scheduled to do that right around April 1st. It was supposed to be his first project coming out of the spring. I've been on him. I've been calling him several times. He finally called me back within the last couple of days, and he's now claiming that he will get that done early September. So hopefully he holds what his bid was last fall for his project a year later. The last thing I got is obviously next week is our Boone County Fair. We will once again provide 24-hour coverage for this event. The largest event for the Belvedere Boone County area. We try to do our best each year. It's a challenge. It becomes more and more of a challenge. But with technology, we've also tried to upgrade what we could do. We're going to have approximately 75 cameras throughout the fairgrounds. We will not be covering every square inch out there, but we're getting darn close to covering the entire fairgrounds. We also have them on the roads of McKinley, north of the fairgrounds on Route 76, and also the EI. And on Friday and Saturday night, we're trying something different where we will have a correctional officer manning, watching all not all, but he'll be watching the cameras that are placed on the fairgrounds. So obviously in our corrections, we have the control division. That's basically what their job is. All the correctional officers work in the control divisions. So I figured it'd be good to use their experience and put them in front of these cameras to help our deputies that are on the ground. So that's going to be a great asset for them to watch it. And if it works well, we'll see where we go with that next year. We're just starting off with the weekend this year, and then we'll see where we're at with that next year. So that's it. Any questions? No questions. Oh, whoa.
I missed the date for the swearing in. I have
I
9.
believe it's the 18th. Does that sound right? It's Friday.
Where is it at?
It'll be at the public safety building in the basement. Yep.
Okay, any other questions for Sheriff Young? Seeing that?
Thank you.
Next, we have the Boone County Highway Engineer monthly presentation, Mr. Crum.
Sorry, I didn't get my presentation up on board docs. We've been fairly busy the last few weeks. We're about 2/3 or 60% of the way complete with our construction projects this summer. We just started kind of round 2. Round 1 was about 40,000 ton of asphalt. And we're going to be doing about 20,000 more ton. So to put that in perspective, that's 3,000 semi truckloads of asphalt. So we've been getting a lot of questions on Poplar Grove Road. That you can see out there now. Actually, they just completed about an hour ago the initial process, which is called cold in place recycling. So what you see out on the road is not the final condition. It is what we do is we take the top 4 inches, mill it up, grind it up, process it on site, inject some oils and some emulsions into it, and then we relay it down in a paver. That prevents cracking from happening. It takes our 12-foot lanes that are out there, makes them 15-foot lanes. So now we're going to have a 3-foot asphalt shoulder. So there's a lot of benefit to that. And again, this is where we received that TARP $630,000 grant. So we're, like I say, we're just starting that kind of second round. That will include Centerville Road, Poplar Grove Road, and Irene Road. And then, so that round 1, round 2, $5.5 million. The bridge is about 2.1 million. So we're at $7.6 million this summer. And we're actually probably closer to 70% complete on that work. So everything's on schedule and progressing along well. The bridge, all the concrete completely on the bridge project has been placed and cured. Now we're working on, we've got some guardrails and some other appurtenances to put in and the bridge approaches where we widen out to the bridge and make that transition. So that all that work will be happening in the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're still on schedule for early September opening. And that'll coincide with the opening of our Poplar Grove work as well. Our Poplar Grove work will be done probably late August. So it'll be a nice completion, a nice corridor for traveling with that additional 3-foot asphalt shoulder. We'll put another aggregate shoulder on the outside of that as well in-house. We just completed this week, or actually tomorrow, we'll be completing our yellow centerline striping. And then after the fair, we will work on the white edge line striping, and that's all done in-house. In fact, we've been using a lot of township support with all of our operations. We're down to 3 guys right now, or in the past, this past a couple months, we were down to 3. So we're relying heavily on the township support, and it's been great, working out very good for everybody. I just went to a meeting with WISDOT, I guess it was yesterday. This is 2025, construction season of 2025. They're going to be closing down basically 76 or Wisconsin 140 from Clinton to the state line. That'll be closed for the construction season. And there'll be a bypass detour around there, essentially going up over on the intended bypass, or the intended detour is 173 over to 251 up to 43. So that's, again, that's in 2025. The intersection of 67 and 140 is going to be a very large roundabout up there. So those are some regional updates. We've submitted a few grants here recently, hoping to hear back from those. Starting work on the additional new bridges. That work is coming along real well. The Township Bridge Program funds that I had spoke to you about probably about a year ago, trying to get support for those did make it into the budget. So we are going to have additional Township Bridge Program money to spend. In fact, times 4. So usually in a year we get about $81,000 to $83,000 per year. So times 4, we'll be getting about $250,000 a year. So that's going to that will help increase the amount of township bridges that we can replace. And so that's a needed thing. And so I think we're in good shape going forward. So open to any questions.
Mr. Mueller?
So Justin, on that remilling, what does that usually run, like a mile or foot? Just, I can figure it out, but I was just curious if you had that rough number.
Yeah, I can kind of come up with it in my head. So it's for 4 inches, it's going to be probably about $90,000 to $100,000 per mile. 4 inches, and that includes the milling and the injection of the oils to put down, and then you have to top it with something after you're done. So it's not, it can't be left open. It's very equivalent to a 2-inch virgin asphalt overlay. So per mile or per square yard or whatever, per area. So yeah, it's just under 100,000 per mile.
No, I'm just curious because I know the north end of Garden Prairie Road to our farm, we got a milk truck goes in and out there every day, and he's usually 50. I mean, he comes in at 30,000 empty weight, and he'll leave with 15,000 pounds of milk. So he's got an extra 15,000 on every time he leaves the farm. So I'm just.
And that's probably conservative. I would imagine sometimes those are a little bit.
It depends on which way he's coming in. If he comes in full, almost full and tops it off, then different stories.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, so the thing that we've been doing pretty successfully here is using TARP money to kind of subsidize our widening and our beefing up of our roads. Generally speaking, once, I think we're going to be able to do it twice on Manchester Bay changes. But, and so on this project of Poplar Grove Road, that's just over 6 miles. That total project cost was 1.3 million. We got 630,000 from TARP, so just under half. So it really makes a big difference and be able to widen out. The only problem becomes is, if you can picture the road with an aggregate shoulder, the existing conditions, you drop down to a ditch and you got culverts and mailboxes. So if we were to widen it, if we had the money and the funds to widen it and do it the best way, we'd buy some additional right of way and we'd move those ditches and mailboxes out and be able to have a gradual slope. So this is kind of the most cost effective and cost-effective way to do it. So, 6 miles, 1.3 million for those 6 miles. So about 200,000. Yeah.
Thanks, Justin.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Crum? Seeing none, thank you. Next is the quarterly department presentations with the state's attorney.
I do have my report in. I guess just 2 main points I'd like to make. I still have an opening in my office that has been there since January. We've made an offer to 5 different attorneys and we lost out to private firms or other attorneys' offices based on salaries. So it's been very difficult to fill that position. And I think it's something that will be addressed in our budget request. In addition, the Safety Act decision did come out, and I think we talked about it a little bit last week, but we are in the steps of discussing it internally with the other offices within our county that this affects. The sheriff, probation, clerk's office, the public defender's office. We're meeting to make sure that we have everything in place to start on the 18th. But kind of along with my first comment, we believe also that this is going to strain our staff resources because the act requires us to have more lengthy process to have someone remain in custody while a case is pending, and that time frame has shortened up quite a bit, that we have to have a hearing with the next day when they're in custody or within 24 or 48 hours. I do anticipate that probably over the weekend that we're gonna end up having people come in early on Monday morning to make sure that we are prepared, depending on the numbers that we have in custody over the weekend. And again, the hard part about this is that it's fluctuates. We never know from one day to the next how many people are gonna be in custody. I mean, sometimes we have a Tuesday and there's 6 people in custody. So that's just something that we're gonna have to address as time goes on, and we'll see how the implementation goes. In addition, we anticipate there'll probably be litigation regarding some of the aspects of the act, and that could affect how we have to implement here in Boone County. So those are my points. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Smith?
I did want to mention Kate Cross is not here. She is at a conference. She did submit a written report, but she just wanted to let you know that she's at a conference, and that's the reason why she's not here.
Thank you. Okay. So 7.2, as just mentioned, Cross is not available here. Does anybody have any questions or anything on that presentation? 7.3, the probation. Is Ms. Galano here? Yep.
Hello, Amy Galliano with the Probation Department. I have submitted my narrative for tonight's meeting. I'd like to note a correction right off the bat. As I was reading it, the work is being done on my budget for 24, not 23. And down in the next paragraph, my numbers are for this year, for fiscal year 23. Sorry about that. I don't know if anybody caught that, but anyways, as in my narrative, our office has been involved in some stuff outside of just court cases coming down. We like to be involved in some community activities. We participated with the Boone County Health Department's Farmers Market Wellness Fair. We had a tent that we shared with Remedies, who provide substance abuse treatment and domestic violence counseling to residents of Boone County. My officers had information related to the 17th Circuit Family Violence Coordinating Council. They were providing information on resources for victims of domestic violence. So that was last week, I believe last Tuesday. Myself and my boss, the director of the court services for the 17th Circuit, Debbie Jarvis, we attended a leadership conference last week for 2 days in Effingham. It's a really good conference. I was glad I was able to go. My officers have upcoming training in October for the Illinois Court Services Association, so I try to get them regular, ongoing, updated training. After I submitted this report, I received a resignation from my juvenile probation officer who had been with us for the last 10 years. He's been a great employee. His name is Justin Barber. He has taken on a new opportunity with the Regional Office of Education, so we'll be sad to lose him. So I've gone 7 months with full staff for a rough 2 years that we had. So now we're looking, I posted, so. Anybody have any questions?
Any questions? Dina?
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
8 is the written monthly departmental reports and updates. All those. And next we'll go to 9.1.
Excuse me, actually, you missed.
Wait a second, we got
Circuit
Caduto.
Oh, so I'm sorry.
Circuit clerk.
Dudo.
Oh, come on up.
Sorry, the quarterly department presentation of the circuit board is Caduto.
Thank you. Good evening. I'd like to report that on July 24th, we received notification that we will receive a grant for our online dispute resolution program. The grant money will go to the case management vendor that we have with the work that they've put in to getting this program implemented. Budget recap, we are under budget for our office supplies, postage, and payroll. I have it listed in the report. Our fiscal 2024 budget has been turned in. We did go over it with Becky Tobin the other day. Safety Act, that's the big thing that's going to be on our plate now. We're looking, like Tricia had said, we're meeting, but now we have to, our office, we have a bunch of forms. All the forms are going to change due to this act. And we created the forms last year before the appeal went in. So we were ready to go if it did pass without an appeal. So now we're looking at that, training the deputy clerks now to the new forms and how the new procedures are going to be in the courtroom for them. And that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Okay, that go on to 9.1 now. I need a motion to approve the claims with the understanding that what's that? Those are all the information.
Good.
I need a motion to approve the claims with the understanding that Carl Johnson abstains from voting on all claims presented by William Charles, Northern Illinois Service Company, Warren, Maine, all claims submitted by the Boone County Highway Department, and all claims submitted by any county department regarding sewage, stormwater, construction, and excavation. Motion by Mr. Schneider, seconded by Mr. Mueller. Any discussion? Roll call.
Rodney Riley, yes. Brian Schneider,
Yes.
Dave Wiltsey,
Yeah,
you good?
aye, yes.
Thank you. Ray Larson,
Aye.
Brett Mueller,
Yes.
Tom Wahlberg,
Yes.
Alyssa Patterson,
Yes.
Dana Logston,
Yes.
Carl Johnson,
Yes.
and Marion Thornberry.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion carries. 9.2, the raffles, do we need a motion? I don't think we need a motion for this.
Is there any of them here that need any special attention back here? No.
No.
We're good. No.
Should probably have a motion.
On to,
Okay.
Is there one here? No? Okay.
so those will go on to the county board for approval. 9.3, discussion regarding 222 Pearl Street Road. Ms. Smith?
Just to, for your recollection, this is the property that we did get an ordinance violation on, and part of the remedies were that if the property owner did not clean up the property, that the county could clean up the property and basically put a lien on the property. And where we had left it was that we were looking into maybe somebody to do that work and give an estimate. And Justin was nice enough to pass on some names from some other county highway departments. I did contact the business on that list. They did drive out there, and it was beyond the scope of something that they would do. He did pass on a couple suggestions, which I have not yet followed up on. This was, I think, late last week, early this week when I got those suggestions. He did think that it was going to be extensive and expensive cleanup, that it may need a couple different expertise, such as someone with several flatbeds, take care of vehicles, snowmobiles, engines, that type of thing, as well as someone to come in and basically clean up like the garbage part of it as well. So I just wanted to, I guess, keep you updated on how we're exploring what we can do on that. I was hoping that maybe that company would be able to give us an estimate and but that didn't happen. So we'll keep working on it and see if the people he suggested are able to give us an estimate.
Okay. Ms. Patterson?
Do they have, there's a lot out there. Is there chemical concerns, and is there something that can be done there for safety issues or whatever, leaching into the ground?
It's my understanding that the IEPA has been involved with the property, that the owner has mitigated that. And to the best of my knowledge, the IEPA is satisfied that there is nothing regarding contamination or that sort of thing.
Thank you.
If I could, a question, so the property owner, do they know, are they aware that we're looking at putting a lien against their property and cleaning this up then?
It's part of the court order that was ordered and he has not complied, so I would believe he's on notice that this is something that could happen. He also is represented by counsel.
Mr. Walbert?
Is the timeline that you said you've gone past it, but what is your expectation on this timeline?
He had, I want to say until early summer to clean it up. And then we've just been working on trying to find somebody who would give us an estimate as to how much it may cost to clean it up. So the county can consider if that's something that they want to do. I think, I wasn't here with the initial discussion. I think Carl Nagel had kind of briefed the board. It's my understanding that she did let you know that the issue with the lien on a property maybe is that you're not going to get paid then until property is sold, and that, you know, depends on how much mortgage is on the house and the other liabilities are, you know, against that title. So, but my intention is to have an update in the next couple of weeks based on the availability of these other companies to go out and take a look at it.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion on this property?
If the board's okay, then we'll just put it as an agenda item again for next month, just to make sure that we keep on track with this.
Yep.
And if we learn something sooner, we can certainly keep you updated.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. On to 9.4.
5,
Excuse me, what's that?
9.5.
Oh, yeah, we skipped 9.5. I need a motion to approve the purchase of a new drone for the Emergency Management Agency.
So move.
Motion.
Why don't you read the whole motion, Ray?
Hold up the rest of it.
Thank you.
For $18,000. This expense will be paid using ARPA funds.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Mueller, seconded by Mr. Schneider. Any discussion?
Presenters here.
Yes, we do have some members of EMA present that wanted to do a short, brief demonstration with a little PowerPoint.
Smokes.
Unless you're ready to vote yes.
Work for it. Here we go.
I'm just gonna ask this to you. Is this the current drone that we have? And it's about 10 years old. If you wanna, it won't turn on, you're good.
I'm just gonna throw it. So.
My name is Mike Lowe. I'm the new assistant coordinator with emergency management. This is Don Thunberg, and he is the team lead for the drone team. So he'll go over the PowerPoint with you.
Good evening. Just a quick presentation here. To give you some information on the updated drones and the technology that's available today. Just a little bit of background myself. Retired 35 years from the FAA as an air traffic controller. Got 25 years with fire service. About 2 years ago, I joined EMA, and here recently we're looking at getting a drone team established. And just some of the highlights on there. The drone that we're looking at, it'll be capable of thermal imaging, which we'll have just a quick video after this, but and it's got a really enhanced camera that would even be able to see at night as far as doing search and rescue would be our primary concern. It'll also be utilized for the fire service to respond to house fires. The drone that's pictured here also will have streaming capability. So once we're up in the air, it will be able to be viewed at the command center. When we had a drone team out after the tornado, they came out from Hanover Park and they were able to see the actual footage as the drone was flying to assess the damage back at the command center. The benefits of the drone really reduces the risk. It will eliminate a lot of hazards for the ground search team. And if you want to back up just a little bit, there's that link there. It'll play just a short, or it should. If you click it, it might bring up. So this is the video with the thermal imaging. You can see the couple of ground search people. And what this video shows is as they're searching the area, this is an actual search for a young woman that had gone missing. And with the capabilities of the drone, assessed pretty quickly that there's nobody out there and they can move on to a different area and eliminate hours of manpower. So yeah, you can probably just close that out. It'll keep playing in a loop. And then there's another video we have that just shows the capability as far as with the fire service. There's no voice with this, but it shows as a fire scene, as they come up on the scene, you could look at the house that's showing smoke, and they'll switch to the thermal imaging camera here and really get a better idea of what they're up against. And again, we could do live streaming with incident commander right in his command vehicle so he can assess what is needed, what kind of resources that they need to come in. You can see on the left with the thermal imaging, on the right, it just looks like, it's just some smoke showing, but you can see on the left as it gets in here, really where the hot spots are so you can have a better attack on the fire. We would also use a drone for water rescues. So when we respond to a scene, we can have the drone up within about 30 seconds to a minute, and we could look downstream on the shorelines and possibly eliminate even the need for the boats to even be launched. So that's basically it. The current drone we have, like I said, it's pretty much obsolete. There's no video capability. It only has one battery, which would give us about 15 minutes of flight time. The new one that we're looking at, it's weather capable, up to 35 miles an hour wind. It's got dual batteries, give you more than 40 minutes of flight time. The laser rangefinder can essentially, once we locate a person, it'll find them. We could drop a pinpoint. We can send the lat longs to the ground search team. No questions asked. They'll know right where to go.
In the state of Illinois, we're reimbursed half of this purchase. So they're going to help with a grant program for drones right now, up to half. So
Is that up to half of the 18,000 or 18,000 is?
That 18,000 and talking with other teams, that gets us the drone, a few spare batteries, because like I said, 40 minutes on a search team, you could be out there for hours. It also includes a power generator, just basically what we would need to, go to a scene, whether it be search and rescue or house fires, just to get us up and running most efficiently.
So yes, it would cover half of the total cost.
Yeah. Mr. Wahlberg?
Yeah, so I'm looking at your estimates here. Yeah, I get it. The extra batteries, everything seems to make sense. Is it the thermal imagery that's costing, that's where you get to that 14,000? I mean, there's a huge price difference between what you've got here and 14,000 out. Right. My son flies, and we've got one on the farm. He's an operator, so I'm kind of familiar with it's DJI, familiar with technology. It streams. Not 14,000.
Right. There is a big difference between the price of with the thermal imaging, but as you can see on the video, It really is priceless at nighttime. I mean, you could, there's other clips where you can see at night lights and houses and things, but until the thermal imaging, you could pick out the bodies. And I don't know if you notice on that one clip there, as I was looking at it, towards the bottom, there's a little white dot, it's a rabbit. So you could really see what you need and whether it, through weather. And again, with the fire service, to be able to really know what the chief is up against as far as looking at, the scene to better assess what they need.
Yeah, the technology is incredible, but is that a $10,000 option? I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out.
I think the difference between the thermal imaging one and the non-thermal is probably about 4,000. So yeah, a lot of it is a technology with the new drones. It's amazing what they can do. Like I said, it's weatherproof. It's up to 35 miles. It could be snowing. It's rated down 4 below zero to 120 degrees. So in a sense, we can be out there searching and not put people at risk.
And wind is a big factor, right?
Sure.
You can't control the weather you're out there, so you've got to have understand the better technology to.
Right. I was out with the team that did the damage assessment, and at the time we had the drone up, there was 35-mile-an-hour winds. And, if you go up there with something less that's not capable, you're wasting your time.
About 5 years ago, I think it was off of Boys Point Road, we had a lady missing in the cornfield. And if we had thermal imaging via drone, we probably would have found her the first night. But she was out there until late afternoon the next day before she was located out in the cornfield. So it could have saved a lot of time because that would have been able to go up even though it was raining that night. It could have went up. But any of the drones that were in the area, nobody had any that could go up in the weather.
Mr. Mueller?
So on the thermal imaging, I'm just throwing out, like if a person is in the river or something drowning, what's the depth that it can pick it up at? Like if they get caught, and like let's say they go over the dam and they're in the water swirling or something.
I think there's a lot of factors of how long they've been in the water because their body temperature will start to diminish.
Yep.
How deep they are, but if they're towards the surface and not been in there long, it would be able to pick it up relatively quick.
I didn't know how deep you could go with the thermal imaging.
Sure.
Okay, any other, Ms. Patterson?
And this may be a stupid question, but if there's a house fire, obviously it's hot and they're taking body heat. Is there any differentiation in knowing that there's somebody in that house?
So with the thermal imager, it's going to tell you what the temperature is. So
Okay.
it'll say that, here is 500 degrees, but if this is something that's 100. You should be able to, if they're not right at that fire,
Yeah.
see almost an outline of a person.
Okay.
Yeah, in that video, you can see where the firefighters are standing next to it as opposed to the house itself. You can
Okay.
see the spraying water on it too.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Wahlberg?
Yeah, I'm good with this. I appreciate what you said at the beginning. I just would like that noted somewhere, or if we need to put that in motion about the money would come back to reimburse this funds where it makes it up. So that's on the record.
And I think it's in that letter that was sent, correct? The letter of intent.
I think it's in from Dan.
You put it so.
Well, it says at the bottom of best of all purchases eligible for half reimbursement from Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
That's in the initial letter. Now, that's sufficient enough?
That's why I didn't know if it needed to be in the motion or not.
It's fine for tonight. We'll take a look at it, make sure that we have the full motion,
Ready for board?
all the wording correct on the board meeting.
We'll make sure, if the check comes back, it goes back into the ARPA funds, not into the general
Correct.
fund.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You guys.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. 9.6. Need a motion to approve special use permit 12-2023 2366 Genoa Road, commercial vehicle parking, special use.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Mueller, seconded by Mr. Walker. Roberts?
Yes, thank you. This application is by Chad Harbison. It's seeking the special use permit again for the commercial vehicle parking. The lot size is proposed in the A1 Agricultural Preservation Zoning District is approximately 5 acres. Setbacks. The applicant is proposing the storage of the drain tile material within the building, as well as the storage of excavating vehicles outside. Proposing limited outside storage of drain tile materials no more than 2 days at a time. The outside parking is including the excavator, tractor, and semi-lowboy. The applicant has given us a site plan to indicate where these will be stored. The Regional Planning Commission found the proposal is consistent with the comprehensive plan on July 18th. No public attended that meeting, and the zoning board of appeals found the proposed meeting to the findings of fact as presented by staff and voted in favor of the application. The applicant will need to complete and submit a plan review for the well and or septic to the Boone County Health Department once your plan meets well and septic setbacks. And the applicant will be limited to the storage of the vehicles as mentioned. At the public hearing, Attorney Hirsch indicated that the applicant's only intention is to store the work vehicles on the site with limited drain tile storage, and that the applicant is understanding that the parking may need to be improved, and they are in agreement with the findings. There was also a representative testifying for the applicant, as well as an adjacent property owner testifying for the applicant, and no objection. The ZBA voted again as accepting the findings of fact and approval with the 5 conditions, and staff is, finds that the case is consistent with the history of the site, future zoning, and has met the zoning ordinance's findings of fact, and therefore recommends approval of the special use along with the 5 conditions of approval as listed.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Walbert?
Yeah, so just one note. Under public content, you do have the wrong applicant's name in here. You've used a previous form. The application is correct for Mr. Harbison.
Which one?
Well, under board docs, I don't know if it matters. The applicant, you have a different name.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, just note.
Yes.
And just a comment I'd like to make, I'd really like to commend Mr. Harbison for the great relationship he has with his neighbor. I think if everybody had that kind of relationship with their neighbors, and Ms. Meyer spoke at ZBA, and that was just wonderful, and it made my heart feel good. So I really appreciate that. She did an excellent job.
Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. 9.7. Need a motion to approve special use permit 11-2023, 10798 Shaw Road, bed and breakfast establishment, special use. Motion by Mr. Mueller, seconded by
I'll second.
Mr. Riley.
Second.
Ms. Roberts.
Looks like, Becky, that application is further down in the PowerPoint. This application is for, again, this special use permit for a bed and breakfast establishment at 1079 Shaw Road. The ordinance to allow for a bed and breakfast establishment in the R1 single family district allows for the special use application. The property is approximately 1.64 acres, containing a home and an attached 3-car garage. The requested use is occupied by owner or agent for housing of families traveling to the area. And other attractions, the applicants are proposing the operation be limited to 15 days maximum stay, maximum 2 adults per bedroom, with a maximum of 5 of the 6 bedrooms available to the public. Property is served with septic and well, and the site maintains a large lawn with a deep front yard setback and backyard. The applicants have done interior renovations and the home is fully furnished. The Boone County Regional Planning Commission found the proposals consistent with the comprehensive plan on June 20th, recommending approval with a vote of 4-0. And ZBA voted on the findings of fact. This ZBA, as you recall, you sent the item back to ZBA to be heard and to investigate the findings of fact. They heard this item July 25th, which was last Tuesday. And the motion to adopt the findings of fact presented by staff failed with a vote of 2-2. Commissioner Crum and Commissioner Schultz voting no. And then the ZBA voted to recommend approval of the application subject to the 5 conditions as recommended by staff. And that is not correct. That motion failed as well. Anyways, that motion failed as well for the ZBA. The presentation by that was the previous ZBA, the July 25th ZBA, the motion with a vote of 2-2. And that is later on. But there were several people in opposition as opposed to for the public testimony and comments for the original zoning board of appeals meeting. The applicant's attorney was also present, as well as the applicants. Additional discussion on July 25th. Chairman Hale asked for a motion to accept the findings as written. Again, that motion failed with a vote of 2-2. And then the vote of the application for the zoning board of appeals on July 25th also failed with a vote of 2-2, with Joan Crum and Steve Schabacher voting no. So I apologize for that. Staff is still recommending special use with the R1 single family zoning district be granted to permit a bed and breakfast establishment with the following 5 conditions. And I can read them aloud if you like, or wait until.
Mr. Wiltsey?
I have a couple of questions. How many bathrooms are there in this facility, this home?
I do not recall exactly, but at a minimum 3.
I'm curious as
it is a 2-story.
I'm curious as to why the only thing that did pass the ZBA by a vote of 4-0 was to go down from a maximum of 16 to 10 people. And that passed 4-0, and yet the recommendation in the conclusion still stays at 16 guests. Why wasn't that ended to?
So and you might be able to correct me. So the motion was made to adopt a new condition by the zoning board of appeals to change the condition from 16 down to 10 people maximum. That motion passed at ZBA.
Right.
Then the motion was made to approve the special use permit as amended, and that motion failed. And so their staff recommendation, I guess.
So while it was amended, it ultimately did not pass.
I understand that, but our own code says 10 adults, two at times 5 bedrooms. So I don't know why would it be 16 guests instead of 10 adults.
I understand your question. So originally, the 16 number was established by the health department, and that was including children, adults, maximum 2 adults per room, and then 16 total people, including children. So that's where that number came from, based on the septic size.
Okay, I just want to point out to members of the board that the ordinance talks about adults. The initial recommendation and still the recommendation of staff is guests, 16 guests. And then the motion to go down from 16 to 10, which was passed by 4-0, even though the amended motion didn't pass, was 10 people. You have a problem when you mix words like that, adults, guests, and people. I think that's problematic, and in the future, we ought to try to use the language that the ordinance has. In my opinion, as I look at this, there's ample discussion and letters from neighbors about their opposition. Mr. Fraser, Mr. Jervik, Mr. Nelson, these other two are outside of the actual area of the drawing, the ones that are listed in number 9, which is owners of record within a particular distance. But Mr. Di Silvestro opposed it, Mr. Goddard opposed it. Now, this isn't, in my opinion, this isn't a B&B. This is more like an Airbnb. And when this ordinance was passed some, I guess, a couple of decades ago, I think it anticipated that the family running the B&B would be there to provide breakfast to the people that were at the B&B. There's discussion in the staff memo about agent, but nobody lives in the house right now, to my understanding. And this is taking the B&B concept and making it into a commercial concept. And I don't think that's consistent with A1. It's not a residential use to have people stay overnight and pay money. That's a business. And for that reason alone, and for the reason of the neighborhood people indicating that they don't agree with the fact that they think it would affect the neighborhood adversely. And accordingly, you look at our famous A through F findings, and I go to the staff memo of August 3rd, page 3. Structure used at the particular location requested is necessary or desirable to provide a service or a facility which is in the interest of the public. This isn't in the interest in the public, I submit to you. This is an interest of the people that own the house that don't want to live in it but want to rent it and make money off of it. That's not a public interest. And I don't think it will contribute to the general welfare of the neighborhood or community. That's A, sub A under 273, if I recall correctly. There's also notes in these letters of opposition that were attached to the initial ZBA hearing that the neighbors in question indicating that they believe it will have a substantial adverse effect. This is in B, bottom of page 3 of the staff memo. It will have an adverse effect upon the property, the character of the neighborhood, traffic conditions, utility facilities, and other matters affecting the public safety, health, general health, and welfare. In C, the factor says the proposed structural use will be designed, arranged, and operated so as to permit the development and use of neighboring property in accordance with the applicable district regulation. The indication is the proposed use is not anticipated to have any effects on the surrounding development. But look what that says. Look what C says. It says the use of neighboring property. It's not the use of the subject property. It's the use of the property in the neighborhood. I don't think that cuts it under number C. D, such other standards and criteria as are established by the ordinance for a special use is set forth in 724 and applied to plan developments is set forth in section, I'm reading directly from the memo, another one of the factors, sub D. Section 210 shall apply to property for as long as the special use is in effect. And it talks about the staff report, the special use will conform to all the applicable regulations and lot development standards in the zoning district in which it's located. I can't answer that one yet because we don't have the text amendment, but I just don't think this is the kind of use that was anticipated. E is the special use will be in all other respects conform to the applicable regulations of the district in which it's located, except as such regulations may in each instance be modified by the county board pursuant to the recommendation of the zoning board. I feel that if we pass this at all, it ought to talk about 10 adults, not 16 guests. I'm not trying to rule out people, but let's use the language of our own ordinance and not throw in another name of a noun that describes people. And then finally, in F, that the potential public benefit of the special use outweigh any potential adverse impacts of the special use. I don't see a weighing there that's going to outweigh the benefits. This would outweigh the potential adverse impacts after taking into consideration the applicant's proposal and requirement recommended by the applicant to ameliorate such impacts. I just think that this is not an intended use. I think this is a B&B. I don't think we've defined a B&B. I think that's a more intense commercial use than just a bed and breakfast. And I would urge my fellow board members to vote no on this special use. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Patterson.
Is the applicant here tonight?
They are not.
No representation?
No representation on it.
Thank you.
Mr. Thornberry.
I think there's a lot more important issues that we need to pursue other than everything that Mr. Wilson just said there. When they talked to us here, a couple of weeks ago, they said this was going to be a family-oriented business with an adult, but the family had to be all adults, which means from a common sense standpoint, everybody that comes to that place has to be at least 18 years old. With everybody in that location at 18 years of age, regardless of whether you're related or not, it sounds like a house of pleasure to me. Secondly, he bought this property for approximate, I believe, somewhere around $400,000, give or take. It's on the market right now for $700,000, give or take. Now, why would you need a special permit if you're going to sell the place? Too many questions. Also, the people who own it live in Florida. They do not live in Illinois. The people who are going to run the place actually live in Rockford. And I don't see anybody going to be overseeing this property myself, which gives you another reason why you have to wonder why they have to be all 18 years of age or older. Too many questions, ladies and gentlemen, too many possibilities that could go wrong.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
Thank you. I would concur with what Mr. Wiltsey so eloquently stated. He touched on many of the things that I was thinking myself. And I agree 100%. I think this kind of violates the general purpose of a bed and breakfast. If it's not an owner occupied residency, that's kind of what a bed and breakfast is. If you've ever stayed at one, the owners live there, they rent out a room to you. That's not what this is. And I'm concerned when we put a special use on this property, and if we grant this special use stays with this property. And we've now created a business in this residential area that's going to be there forever and open for the next investment group that comes in and the next one on top of that and the next one on top of that. And I'm worried about the slippery slope that we start to generate doing something like this. Special use in this kind of instance, I do not think is the appropriate thing, and I think this violates the intent of the original ordinance was put there, so I will not be voting in favor.
Mr. Riley?
I'll concur with what just about everybody said, and I think without mixing apples and oranges, if we looked at this in perspective of some of the other issues that this board is dealing with, our decisions on some of those issues would be just as clear, especially when it comes to detriment of the neighborhood. So I have to agree with everybody that spoke so far, and I'll be supporting this either. Thank you.
Mr. Wiltsey?
Yeah, one other comment briefly. So that's my understanding. There's only 3 bathrooms and that one of them is on the ensuite for the place where the agent or the family would stay. That leaves you 2 bathrooms for 5 rooms for the 10 people. And I just don't think that this is, you can't even stretch this into a B&B, let alone an Airbnb.
discussion? Ms. Roberts, anything else? No?
Unless there's any questions.
Okay. Seeing no other discussion, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Motion fails.
We have an indication, no ayes for the minutes, and all members voting were voting nay for the minutes.
Need a motion to approve text amendment 14-2023, short-term rental definition and special use designation. Motion by Mr. Mueller, seconded by Mr. Thornberry. Yep. Seconded by Mr. Thornberry. Ms. Roberts?
Sure. So this application was the original application that was applied for by Todd Olmsted. The application was filed to include a use definition of short-term rental. And if you don't mind, I'll go ahead and read that aloud, if that's all right. The short-term rental, the proposed language was for part or all of a dwelling or dwelling unit that is rented for transient occupancy by guests for a period shorter than 30 consecutive days. The term short-term rental does not include either hotels or motels as defined in this section, a dwelling or dwelling unit for a period of time prior to transfer of possession pursuant to the terms of a rental agreement executed in conjunction with a contract to sell a dwelling or dwelling unit. So this language was proposed by the applicant and their representation. They were proposing the short-term rental definition short-term rental be listed as a special use application in the R1 zoning district exclusively. The zoning board of appeals heard the case and they recommended denial of the proposed text as written with a vote of 0 to 4. The staff request for comments, there were primarily the comments had to do with the health department and any septic suitability if this were to be inserted into the ordinance, as well as meeting all applicable building codes and ordinances. There were several attendees in opposition and laid out the items. This is laid out in the staff report in general with some of the folks in their opposition, as well as there were some folks speaking to the application for the text. Just giving examples of what sorts of uses short-term rentals are popular and what sorts of people would travel to apply for this short-term rentals. ZBA, so at the ZBA level, Mr. Schabacher stated that he's strongly against the text for weekends and part-time. He was concerned with once you put it in place, it's tough to say no if they meet the criteria. He's concerned with issues with the use. Ms. Crum asked if we don't have the amendment, then it doesn't have limits, and what happens if someone can go ahead and do so. The chair stated that he's never stayed in a VRBO, but if they don't have it in the code, we're still open. And he indicated that this specific text amendment he was not in favor of due to it being more broad. And a motion was made by the board to approve, and the motion failed as I stated before. Staff recommends the language related to short-term rental definition and proposed use table for this text being denied. However, staff has proposed more restrictive language than standards in the latter text amendment next.
Okay, thank you. Discussion? Mr. Wiltie?
If we're going to get into a short-term rental definition and allow this and open this door, I think we have to think about whether we want to put it in B1 districts, not A1 or any residential district. So I think the idea has to be, I think, shelved for now until we get a better idea of what we should do about defining an Airbnb or defining a short-term rental. I don't want to have closed the door on this special use and then open 2 or 3 doors with language that we're not really sure how it's going to operate and that the ZBA rejected by a 0 to 4 vote. So I would say at this time, I think it should be studied and brought back, but at this time, I think we should not adopt this language.
Any other discussion? Mr. O'Reilly?
I totally concur with what Dave just said. Absolutely. This is something we need to really deeply look into and make sure we're headed down the right direction. Thank you, Dave.
Any other discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay.
Hey.
Motion fails. On to 9.9. I need a motion to approve text amendment 15-2023, short-term vacation rental definition use table.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Mueller, seconded by Mr. Schneider. Ms. Roberts?
Yes, so since this application has come to staff and discussions have been had with regards to this use definition, as well as the potential inserting the use in potential areas in the zoning ordinance, the planning staff, myself actually, has applied to amend the zoning ordinance to include a new use definition for short term as well as vacation rental. I can go ahead and read that for you if you like. Proposed language is the short-term vacation rental is the renting out of a furnished, existing, initially permitted home, which is otherwise a single-family dwelling, or furnished, existing, initially permitted apartment dwelling unit, a unit within a multifamily dwelling that's 4, 3, or 2-family dwellings, or a furnished, existing, initially permitted condominium dwelling unit on a temporary basis, typically on a weekly or daily basis, to tourists as an alternative to a hotel or motel. This use is also known as short-term whole house rentals or vacation rentals, and shall not include bed and breakfast, nor shall include hotel or motel. Additionally, staff is proposing the use be a special within the A1, A2, and R1 zoning district for properties of 2 acres or more, along with the clarifying conditions that any short-term rental, vacation rental also be subject to the annual license or permit, whatever we land on calling it. That just the intent of the annual inspections and licensing. So the zoning board of appeals heard the proposed language by staff, and once their discussion, they did carry the recommendation for approval with the exclusion of the R1 zoning district. So after their discussion, they landed on recommending approval of the proposed, but removing the R1 zoning district from the proposed use table as a special use permit. So that's why that's been X'd out on the memo. Staff is recommending the definition. Again, the 2 acres basically comes from, if we were, the minimum lot size for A2 and A1 is 2 acres. So that's where that 2 acres came from. And then we did a sweep with a GIS just to see how many R1 zone lots are 2 or more acres in size. And that was approximately 6% of the R1 zone lot. So there was a minimal amount of that, which would allow for 2 acres to be further setbacks and larger lots for, separation. Again, staff is proposing that, recommending a license process for the annual license be incorporated within the code of ordinances prior to any special use being established. And they're hoping to aid in addressing any additional immediate concerns that may arise and create an avenue for us to revoke the use other than a special use revocation. So it gives us the idea is that we're able to follow and monitor a use with an additional year than the special use permit by revoking that in the event we would need to do so. On the memo then, I did indicate some surrounding area unincorporated counties and how they regulate these. McHenry County has permitted them up to 12 times per year or 90 days. Anything over that would require a special use permit. in residential and most other districts. DeKalb County, they do not regulate it at this time. Winnebago County, they require a special use permit in agriculture and residential zoning districts with lots larger than 1 acre in size. And then in Joe Davies County, they permit them outright, but that's a county with a lot of tourists, right? So again, public testimony, several people spoke in opposition as laid out in the memo. There were some additional comments regarding the use and how the use may be a benefit, and listed some of those reasons people would stay at a short-term rental. Additional zoning board discussion. Mr. Schultz stated he thinks the language in the proposal is a good start, and it may not solve everything, but as I hear tonight, it's happening in the county. That was another item I didn't mention, is we did do some research of some areas within Boone County, and we did find that there were some operating in the county. So this was another reason why staff thought it might be a good idea to make sure we have something in place in the event it becomes even more popular. Mr. Hale stated that the license permit fee would be separate ordinance at a later time, but it would have to be incorporated as part of the special use. He was encouraged by that. And let's see. Mr. Schabacher stated that he was encouraged by the proposal. However, again, he was not in favor of the residential zoning district and allowing it as a special use in that district. And Mr. Schultz indicated his agreement with that. Mr. Hale would like to also ensure that it's monitored and incorporated in the ordinance for the yearly regulations above and beyond the special use permit. So staff recommends a definition as read and to be included within the zoning code and listed in the A1, A2, and R1 zoning districts. If they are listed in the R1 zoning districts, then for a minimum of 2 or more acres, and also establishing a yearly license permit along with a yearly inspection for any special use approval. Zoning Board of Appeals recommended approval of the language as presented by staff with the exclusion of the R1 zoning district.
Discussion, Mr. Wiltsey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you listen closely to this, which I'm sure you have, and studied the staff memo and listened to Ms. Harvard's comments, what we just turned down 2 votes ago probably could fit into this definition. And I think it should be restricted more than just R1, but A1. And I think that deserves some study. I think we need to look at this issue in more detail, but I also think we really need to look at the zoning and where we want these things to be. And I do not, in addition to not being an R1, I don't think it should be an A1. So accordingly, I would say at this time, I would recommend a no vote. But, you know, this may come in a bigger package later on where we try to define an Airbnb and get a view of this from the more modern business operating standpoint. But I don't think we should do it now under this situation. Thank you.
Mr. Johnson.
I pretty much agree with Mr. Wiltsey. I guess one of the things, going back to the previous issue we had, again, this is a special use that stays with that property forever. So just doing a special use is not a good option, in my opinion, for something like this. I like staff's idea, creating a permitting process. I think that's a fantastic way to kind of control this, and even using a special use, if it does take special use still, to have that unlimited special use. Maybe it's a 5-year special use that has to be renewed, plus you have the permitting or whatever, so that you have some controls. But before I would vote in favor of some of this language, I need to see what those regulations, rules, and that layout is. Because in doing this, again, we open up our residential areas, whether it's A1, A2, R1, whatever. We're opening that up now to investment groups that are going to come in and start buying homes. What does that do? That means that our average citizens Now, instead of buying a home for $250,000, now that home's $350,000 or $400,000 or $600,000. And that just brings that entire value up, and we start pricing our Boone County residents out of being able to stay in Boone County, the average hardworking family to stay in Boone County. And I don't think we want that at all, because you see that all over in other places. Obviously, most of those are more touristy areas, but you can see it a lot. When you start opening up that business venture, there's a lot of people that start pitching in money, create businesses and buy 5, 6, 7 homes and start renting them out. And it's big money. So it's turned into big money, big business. And I don't think when all this started, or even when they did the bed and breakfasts, nobody imagined this kind of thing would blow up like this. And I say all that, I'm a proponent for vacation rental by owner or Airbnb or things like that. I've used them multiple times myself. And when we've traveled, it's a great option. But I do think we have to be careful how we approach it, how we do it. So until we really get those details, I'm not in favor of passing any of this.
Mr. Wahlberg?
Yeah, so not to carry on with this, I support Mr. Wiltsey and Mr. Johnson's comment. I attended the ZBA meeting, and from my observation, the reason the R1 was struck out of there because there was a lot of opposition in R1. And so you could argue that we have people that also live in A1, right? And then where you drive down the road and there's multiple houses. So those people are going to be affected in the same manner as people would be that live in a subdivision in R1. So, yeah, I agree that we need to rethink this, and I'll be voting no.
Mr. Wiltsey?
Just briefly on 2 other points. I think it was really interesting somewhere earlier in this where they talked about not doing it in one of the counties, Lake, I think, not doing it in an unincorporated area, not letting it be allowed. And I think the reason for that is, like, if you're in Belvedere and you're home rule and you've got a lot of things that you've got on your ordinance book, then you can control these situations easier. In an unincorporated area, it relies just upon us, and it's a much more difficult situation. So that's one thing I think we should think about when we go forward to discuss this issue. The other is, in Des Plaines, when I was there 19 years, we called them conditional uses instead of special uses, but it was about the same. I can remember drafting one ordinance that had 19 requirements, 19 exceptions that were required. But make no mistake, you approve a conditional use or a special use, and you go to revoke it, it's a problem and it's a court battle. The procedure exists, but it's easy to pull off because at that time now the judge is thinking there's vested rights, this is going on, that's been approved once, what's the problem here? And it's much more complex than it sounds. Thank you.
I have a question. Ms. Patterson.
I agree with everybody. A couple of things to add. I think where we've used parking before, like the amount of vehicles that can be at a property is something to be considered. And I brought this up at ZBA because I attended the meeting as well. One of the issues that you're going to have is private property rights. And they can, and Shaw Road has rented their property for 30 days. I can rent my property for 30 days and the people they don't have to stay there for 30 days. They can stay there for 7 days. So there are workarounds. So if we're considering this, I want that type of stuff rolling around in people's brains as well, because where we go in one direction, they're going to go in another. And that house, my understanding is that it is currently rented, and it's rented for like just an amount of time that isn't going to get them into trouble. So it's an issue. We've got to be able to figure something out. And I would also like to add that I agree, like, people don't want hassles with their neighbors. You can't always choose your neighbors. But we also do have active Airbnbs that have had no issues. So you've got the bad ones, or the bad one that created this whole storm. And then you've got some that are out there actively working right now that have not had any issues. So I have a hard time faulting people for doing the right thing because somebody did the wrong thing. So just food for thought.
Okay, so I have a question here. Was this presented separately, this text amendment to the ZBA? Or did this?
They were.
So these were both, compared to the one before it, they were both presented separately?
They were presented separately. In fact, they were separated with a case in between them for that reason.
And I have another comment, question. This one is permitting it as a, in the A1 district. Would people renting it then be able to utilize temporary use permits on these properties?
I would not interpret it that way because that would be not part of the special use permit application.
I don't, why wouldn't they be able to?
Or they're separate.
Well, they're saying, why would it, anybody can have a separate example whether you live there or not. But I wouldn't interpret the temporary use as part of the special use or a short-term rental.
Like what temporary use are you thinking about?
Say I rent a place for a month or 2 months and get a temporary use permit to have some other temporary use on it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the property owner, regardless of whomever renting, the property owner, if they agreed to it, they could apply for temporary use, right? That's the way they want it to go.
So I was wondering, so a temporary use could be used.
Temporary use can be applied for in any property that they're allowed, regardless of who's applying for it. I mean, the property owner has to be the applicant.
But it still has to meet other terms of the temporary use permit.
Yeah. Okay, I was just wondering. Any other discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Motion fails. On to 9.1. 9.10. I need a motion for the proposal from CES Engineering for a topographical survey of the Boone County Administration campus.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Wiltsey.
Read the rest of it.
Oh, it's not listed here. Oh, I had to scroll down. Sorry about that. So for a topographical survey of the Boone County Administration campus in the amount of $4,200. Expense to be paid using ARPA funds. That was motion by
So moved.
Mr. Wiltsey, seconded by Mr. Mueller. Becky, go ahead.
So now that we've hired two different architects that are working on two different projects that also involve the admin campus up here, we have found they're requesting topo maps, and the last time we had topo map done on this property, CES said was 1995. So even before this addition was put on the building. So it'd be really beneficial to actually both architects if we had an updated topo map. So I would ask that you let us go forward with that so that both architects have really good data to go off of.
Mr. Walber.
What's the benefit?
The benefit is, well, Saavedra Architects, as they're working on any possible additions to this property, if you've noticed out front, this building is not really very ADA friendly. The entire parking lot slopes. And so one of his designs includes an addition onto the front of the health department. So having some updated topo maps would help there. And now that this addition has been put on, And we're looking at a possible new building on the other side, whether it's the health department or the transportation center. Those topo maps would also benefit them as well.
There's a lot of technology out there that would give you topography. Just the cost seems excessive to me.
Mr. Riley?
Is the engineer requesting this then, Vicki? They're the design that I assume they must be, right?
Savadra architects have said that it would be very helpful if we had an updated topo map. And actually, so has Larson and Darby.
Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hey,
All those opposed say nay.
Hey.
hey.
Motion carries. On to,
It's gonna be on for a roll call at the
Roll
general,
call? All right, that's fine.
at the general meeting.
We can do that. All right, no problem.
Did you intend this to be approved tonight?
I mean, it will just, that's just 2 more weeks. We have to wait till they can start the process, but I mean, that's fine.
I guess my question is to the state's attorney, if this is to be approved tonight, final, then it should be a roll call, I would think.
It should be a roll call. It was not my understanding that it was going to be approved tonight. I thought it was.
That was my question.
Yes.
If we're looking to move forward quicker, then maybe we should have a roll call.
I mean, we can move it forward. That's fine. I mean, the purchasing policy that the county has does give me authority up to $5,000 with the approval at committee level.
Okay.
So it would be helpful. It would just help speed things along if we could.
Do roll call to make sure that that passed, or?
Maybe we should.
Yeah.
That's fine.
we'll do a roll call on 9.10.
Do you have something else?
Mr. Johnson, yeah, did you have?
No, that's fine.
Okay. All right, we're ready? All right, Rodney Riley, yes. Brian Schneider,
Yes.
Dave Wiltsey,
Aye.
Ray Larson,
Aye.
Brett Mueller,
Aye.
Tom Wahlberg,
No.
Elisa Patterson,
Yes.
Dana Logston,
No.
Carl Johnson,
Yes.
and Marion Thornberry.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, I think that wraps it up for administration, correct? All right, moving on for land, we don't have anything for landfill. We don't have any other informational items or other business, do we, Becky? Bring up tonight?
The only thing was the 11.3.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
Those of us that were at UCCI last week, there was a complete presentation regarding emergency management, which also made us start talking about the NIMS training for county board members. Some of you have had it. Some of you have had it many years ago. Some of you have never had it. It really is something, and I've talked to Ema Dan, that the county board members should have at least your basic ICS 100, if nothing else. These are available online. Obviously, they're free. So it is highly recommended that the board members at least have ICS 1, if not some of the others. ICS 100, 200, Dan said 700 and 800 are your basic ones that can be done online. Anything after that, he can have somebody come and teach the classes free of charge with a grant. So just something to think about. He said he has a lot of people, I think, through his volunteers that he's going to be having somebody come out early next year, like in January or February, to teach some of the advanced classes. So if any of you have done the basic ones and are interested in those advanced, you'd be welcome to take those as well. So just in your leisure, it's probably a good idea.
Yep. And just so everybody knows, NIMS is National Incident Management System. So, Mr. Wiltsey.
And from my personal experience, I've taken classes 100 through 400 and 700 and 800. And it really does help you have, Des Plaines, of course, was always flooding. And it really helps you understand the incident command structure and how things are taken and how they're done. It's all about making smoothly, and that different fire departments use the same nomenclature and the police to understand the same thing, so that you didn't have what happened in some of the early hurricanes 2 decades ago or so, where everybody was not talking the same language and it was causing problems.
Mr. Thornberry?
When I took my Open Meetings Act, it was recommended that everybody take it again if you've already taken it once in 2023, because they changed a lot of stuff in it in 2022, so that when you took it 2022, it's not really up to date.
Anybody else? Okay. And the conference that we went to, what was it, 2 weeks ago now? Yeah, a week and a half. Yeah, just last week. Yeah, had a great time. Anybody that, think about it next year, for those of you that didn't go this year. It's an excellent time. A lot of informative sessions, seminars, and I think we all had a pretty good time. So I know Dave went, I went, Lisa went, so Marion went, yep. So, all right. I do believe we do need an executive session tonight for 12.2 and 12.2 collective bargaining and 12.3 personnel. So I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session for
Chairman?
Yes, I'm sorry.
We also need, for pending litigation and.
Oh, boy.
And
Probably.
anticipated litigation and pending litigation.
Okay, so we need a motion to go into executive session for 12.1.
Before we do that,
Yes, Mr. Thornberry.
I would like to thank everyone for the condolences in any form that they came, for the passing of my son. So we are in great appreciation for everything that the county board and the people in Boone County have done for us. And the turnout Sunday behind the VFW was outstanding. We had more people than we expected, but they were all appreciated. All the condolences, cards, money, flowers, whatever you sent, whatever anybody sent was greatly appreciated. So thank you.
Thoughts and prayers are with you and your family. All right, again, I will need a motion to go into executive session for 12.1 pending litigation, 12.2 collective bargaining, and 12.3 personnel.
It's pending litigation and probable and imminent litigation.
Probable and imminent litigation. Did you make the motion, Mr.?
I make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Wahlberg, seconded by Mr. Schneider. Or Mr. Wiltse, did you have?
That's quite all right. No.
Okay.
You can stay for some of this.
All right. So with that being said, we need a roll call vote. Rodney Riley, yes. Brian Schneider?
Yes.
Dave Wiltse?
Aye.
Ray Larson?
Aye.
Brett Mueller?
Aye.
Tom Wahlberg?
Yes.
Alyssa Patterson?
Yes.
Dana Logston?
Yes.
Carl Johnson?
Certainly.
And Marion Thornberry?
Yes.
All right, we will be closed now and